So welcome back to the sound section of the Words to Live By Community Art Project. Hopefully by now you've been able to get Audacity downloaded to your computer. If not, feel free to pause this video and go back to the last one in the document, and that'll show you how to actually find and download the program from online. But in this video, we'll be going through some of the basics of the program, including things like the program layout and some of the features and the buttons that we'll be using to actually record and edit our audio files later. So looking here on my screen, I have Audacity set to full screen. So no worries if yours doesn't look quite as big as this. As long as you have the program up to follow along, that is great. So you can see up here at the top of the program, there are a bunch of different buttons and tick marks and symbols and all sorts of stuff going on up here. This is where a lot of the magic and the instructions and the options are kind of available to you. And so this is where we'll be doing things like pressing a button to record or selecting a tool that we want to use to change the volume of our audio file later. So for now, you don't have to worry about knowing how to do any of that. We'll be going through some of that in this video and some of that in later videos. But for now, just know that this area up here is where you'll have a lot of the different options you can have when you're creating an audio file. So down here in this big kind of gray area, this is where your recording will actually live. So this is where you'll be able to see the audio that you've recorded. And I think in the next video, where we actually talk about recording in Audacity, you'll get a better sense for what that looks like. But for now, just so you know, this is, if you want to think of this area, this big gray area as sort of your artist's canvas, and this area up here as your, as your box of paints and pencils and all the other things you might use to create an art piece. You can see that that is up at the top. I'm going to actually zoom us in a little bit. Now you can see we're going to run through some of the different options here in this big bunch of tools and options up here. So starting with these different buttons you can choose from up here. So these are some of just your basic how are you going to record and how are you going to listen settings. So this first option to the left, this is sort of, if you hovered over this, I think it says, audio host. I wouldn't worry about this too much. This, I'm guessing, will be set to just sort of a default on your computer, so whatever your computer's audio host is. So no big worries there. Hopefully you don't have to change anything. This next section, this second one, this is for choosing your microphone. So, if you have a laptop, you should, I'm guessing, hopefully have a microphone already built into your computer. If you have a desktop, you may or may not have that. So that's where you can choose to just use your built-in microphone, or if you have one that you do like to plug in, or maybe that you have to plug in because you don't have one automatically built into your computer, this is where you can select that. So you just click on the arrow and select. For me, I just have the built-in microphone option, so I'm just going to select that. This section over here says 1 mono recording channel, 2 stereo recording channels. I honestly don't know too much about what exactly this means, as I don't have a huge background in sound editing and whatnot. But I think basically this says, do you just want one, one channel of audio versus 2? And giving you 2, I think, will give you a little bit more of like a full, rich audio sound. So if you have that option available, I would go for it. Otherwise, though, the mono option is fine. And lastly, this is sort of the counterpart to the microphone setting over here. This is the speaker option that you have. So for mine, I have built-in output. This is my only option, sort of like the built-in microphone. But let's say you keep speakers plugged into your computer, or maybe you use a Bluetooth speaker. That should show up here so that you'll be able to click again on the arrows over here to the right and select that, that speaker that you have. So you are, of course, welcome to do that. Moving up here sort of toward the top left, these are the buttons that we'll actually be using to record and then listen back to the audio that we want to record. So this little red button, this little red circle over here, this is the record button. So once you actually feel ready to go and record something and to put your voice out there, this is the button that you'll record to get that process started. And if you hover over it, or at least on my computer, you can see it says record R. So that means you should be able to just press the R button on your keyboard and it'll start recording. The other button for recording is this one with the gray square. So this is for stopping your recording. So the red button will start it and then the gray square will stop it. I was also experimenting earlier. I at least can hit the space button on my keyboard and that'll stop the recording process. So that's also an option for you. These two buttons to the left, these might look familiar if you've maybe watched a video or listened to some sort of audio online before. The green triangle is for play. So this is once you've actually recorded something and you want to listen back to it, you can press that button to play it back. And then these two gray-black lines are to pause the audio. So as you're listening to it, if you want to pause it, you can just press that button. And then these two arrows with lines going left and right, this is for fast forward, for the arrow that's facing right, and then reverse for the one that's facing left. There are these 6 buttons over here. These are going to be more so for editing and working with your audio once you've recorded it. So we'll go over some of those options in a later video, but just so you know, these are some of the editing tools that you have. The other thing to cover here are these two sort of tick mark areas up here. Whoops. So this one over on the top left that says LR -54 up to 0. This is where you can actually check and see how loud your microphone is and how loud you are recording. So you can see there's this little button that says click to start monitoring. So once I click that, you can see that these green bars start showing up. So these show me sort of how loud the audio is that I'm recording and give me a good sense for how things might sound once I start recording my actual audio file. So normally I'd say if you are in the green when you test this out, that's pretty good. And you'll want to be sort of around where I am, maybe a little bit higher, because being in the middle or being a little above the middle, that sort of gives you a comfortable sound. If you're back down to where, let's say, -48 and -54, it'll be a little bit quiet. So let's see if I can get it down there. And yeah, so you probably had some difficulty hearing me just now. That would be down toward -48, -54. On the other hand, if I get really loud and go in the other direction, I can't even get up to that -12, -6 area, but that would be if you're really loud. That might also be really uncomfortable for someone who's listening back, and your audio might also get a little bit distorted. So I would say try and stick somewhere in sort of the -18 to -36 range, maybe. And then over here on the right, this will give you the same sort of monitoring for your speakers once you've actually recorded your audio and are playing it back. So you'll probably see what that looks like in our next video once we're recording and playing back some audio here. So there are some other options to zoom in and zoom out, but I think we will cover those in the next video when we're actually recording. So if you feel ready to jump on into that, feel free to wrap up this video here and then click on the next video in our document. Thanks again for being here, and I hope to see you there.